be done in a respectful and courteous way,
Yes.
such that we deal with the issues that are impacting you. I think that's what you want us to deal with, the issues that are impacting you, not the upsets, because unless we deal with issues that are impacting you, the upsets won't go away. So I really respect what's come forward here from staff. One of the concerns I have about this proposal is the sheer number of people involved and how that can be processed through open house formats of one-on-one. If even 10% of the 2,000 come, that's 200 people in 2 open houses. That's 100 people a day. How long are these open houses? 4 hours, 5 hours? That's a couple of minutes each. And some of these files are much deeper than can be addressed in a couple of minutes. I've actually gone and visited several of these places, and they're complicated files. I've read some of the letters, and they're complicated files. The complexity is at the level where I believe it's best dealt with in an open format where people can hear the examples being discussed in a dignified and pleasant way. And I'm going to move now to have a town hall on this process. If there's a seconder, I'd like to move the motion that instead of we continue with this process. There's many good processes in here on the notification, but instead of 2 open houses, we have 1 or more town halls.
I'll second that. Seconded by Councillor Platt. All right. Continue with discussion. On the list, I have Councillor Derman and then Councillor Grice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A little bit concerned about that we're making up a process on the fly, and I don't think that's the best way to handle things. The Cedar Hill Tennis Club example, which was given, was not a town hall meeting. It was a meeting of council, committee of the whole, to consider an application that had a lot of time spent on it, with open houses have been discussed, with other opportunities for the public to give input. And after that, the proposal, an application, and the applicant worked with staff. Staff indicated where there were concerns, and things went back and forth, and the applicant finally came forward, and we had some very long public hearing, or committee of the whole, to discuss the particular issue. That is usually the culminative part of what you do in council. You spend time to do research first, working with the public, working through a variety of means, and then you have that broad, large, open discussion, which council can hear. I'm worrying that if we have the kind of process suggested in the motion, that we're almost putting the cart before the horse, and we're not doing the homework, and we're not doing the background research, and not providing opportunities for individuals. There will be people who, I've had several, not 2,000 by any means, and at least a couple of community associations who have indicated their concern about watering down the EDPA. It is a complex issue, as Councillor Haynes has said, but it's one that needs to be really properly considered and researched. And I really don't think that a town hall meeting is going to accomplish that. You know, I don't. I also agree with Councillor Haynes that I don't want to see staff vilified. I take objection to some of the language that was used to describe staff activities. I think staff has tried to work hard on this file and to come to solutions. It hasn't met so far the needs of the public, but that doesn't mean that staff is out there trying to thwart the public or make unfortunate decisions or missteps or whatever, and I will not accept any kind of suggestion that that kind of activity is taking place. It's not fair to staff. They're in no position to defend themselves. If somebody wants to attack me as a councillor, fine, but that's a lot different than attacking staff, and that's just not fair. So I am not going to support the motion. I am going to support the approach that indicated by staff, and that will result in something coming to council, and then that council meetings, I suspect, will be very long and will involve a lot of members of the public, and as properly as it should be. But hopefully all the background research, all the concerns have been done, and therefore council is armed with better information on how to ultimately make a decision. Thank you.
Councillor Bryce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I think we're all coming to a conclusion that there seems to need to be a lot more discussion on this issue. And just exactly what vehicle we use to get from here to there, I guess, is what we're struggling with here. The public, sort of everybody comes up to the mic and kind of fires off. I find sometimes not all that productive because oftentimes there's misinformation and there's no opportunity to correct it. On the other hand, I find that the drop-in sessions can be very sterile, and it basically is a means of getting information, but it's not such a good way for the public to give information. And I think we need to concoct a different sort of vehicle, something that is a public information session, one that would allow the public to come, hear from staff, then give their reaction, and then hear some more back from staff, and hear some more reaction, so that everybody goes away knowing more about what the benefits and risks of the EDPA would be. So I like the way we're going, but I think we just need to be certain that the structure that we set up to get this information flow back and forth, because I'm sure that we will all learn new things, as hopefully members of the public would also learn new things in such a session. So I'm not opposed to the concept of the motion on the floor, but because I think it is now code for a big room and a microphone, and everybody gets up and has their 2 minutes, and then I just don't think that is maybe the most beneficial way to go. I think that we could probably be a little more sophisticated in our structuring so it is more beneficial to both sides.
I think that was part of our request. I had said here that we would like an open microphone with both staff and council available to take questions and give answers. That's what we are wanting, is we are wanting answers from both council and staff.
Thank you, Ms. Ball, and thank you, Councillor Bryce. So next on my list, I have Councillor Murdoch again. Actually, I think I'll take first-time speakers, so...
Speaking to the motion? I haven't spoken to the motion.
Okay, go ahead then.
I am, like Councillor Bryce, I'm supportive of the concept that is laid out in the motion. And as I've said, I think that that can certainly be a part of the process. If I had a crystal ball, my prediction would be that we would get to a council meeting on this issue. We would spend, likely at a large auditorium like we had for the clay courts. We would hear for several hours from residents, and then we would probably ask staff to come back, having heard the feedback, and probably go through a process to gather more information. And then we would have something back in the form of recommendations that would then come back to council. So I think that by getting ahead of ourselves, we would actually be putting ourselves behind. I think it's important that we be effective listeners and hear about the concerns. I think there are a number of very legitimate concerns about the implications of the EDPA that we need to have a good understanding of. The way I see that happening is perhaps not a traditional open house where you come and look at some big boards and things like that. I think it can be more interactive than that. But it's about listening. And I want to make sure that we do a thorough job of canvassing the interests of folks who are affected or potentially affected by the bylaw before we get into a meeting on the future direction of the bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Murdoch. I've got Councillor Plant next, and then Haynes, and then Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if I could ask for your help, and perhaps through you to staff. My understanding of the motion that Councillor Haynes has made would be that the public open houses would be cancelled and there would be a town hall meeting instead. I'm wondering if there would be a way to amend it so that they could happen simultaneously, and I'm wondering if you can guide that through me, not on the same nights obviously, but I'm wondering if you could advise me how we would go, or if I could ask staff to advise me how to amend so that we would have the opportunities to have both two town halls, open houses and a town hall. So it's a question through you, if I may, or if you're willing to answer it. If not, to staff, please.
Asking me to answer it.
Well, I'm wondering if your advice would be, can we amend it to put that back in, or would you accept that as an amendment?
I think it's fair as an amendment, but I think it is confusing. We seem to be in an either-or position. maybe if I can, I'll just speak my piece right now. When we look back to the clay courts, I think the lesson from that is that a lot more people came out than council thought would come out, first of all. Second of all, it revealed to council, I think, a number of issues that it wasn't aware of. Third, it was a great educational opportunity for members of the community to hear from their fellow members. So to have a small venue, for example, that cannot handle the capacity and is at particular times of the day versus something held in the evening or on a Saturday like we have for the Clay Courts Town Hall, that for me is the kind of venue that allows everybody to come and everyone to speak to council, staff are off at the side, and for the public to learn how their neighbors have been affected, not just themselves, and to educate themselves in the process. So that I think is a unique element of having a town hall style. Judging by the number of people here tonight, I would say that all that's missing in the audience are pitchforks and torches. As a council, we have a lot of opportunities, and I think it's important for us to be reading the audience and their needs, and not getting so much tied up in the process of how we've done things before. This is a new bylaw, it's a unique bylaw, this is a unique situation, it's affected people uniquely, and I think perhaps that we should deal with it in that fashion. So I don't think the amendment's appropriate. I think we should vote on this as it is. Councillor Haynes?
Okay, I was a question, so I'd still speak to it. So, my understanding, Mr. Mayor, is you will not accept that, you would not accept that as an amendment to have them happen at the same time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and certainly I don't disagree with the sentiment you're speaking. I'm going to speak against this motion as is, because I think the idea of having both is stronger. I don't think everybody's going to want to, and I'm going to make a subsequent motion if it fails, because I think some people don't want to speak in front of 300 people. I think some people maybe just are starting to learn about the EDPA and they'd rather go to an informal meeting at the rec center where they can have a one-on-one conversation with staff. So while I agree with what you said, I'm going to suggest a different strategy, and it's not meant to undermine my colleagues' intentions.
So,
Councillor Haynes?
through the mayor. So, having listened to what our mayor has said and what my colleague Councillor Plant has said, I think the word we might use is in parallel rather than